Hate is the revenge of a coward intimidated. George Bernard Shaw. Bending Not Breaking. The Legend of Korra, Book 1, Episode 8. When Extremes Meet.
Welcome back to another episode of Bending Not Breaking. This is your host, Ben Pruitt, or should I say one of, and we are back with a lot of fun things to talk about. We are on episode 8. 8 is my lucky number, and that is important for everyone to know because I'm sure I've said it at least once prior, but just in case you forgot, I've told you again. And we talked about the aftermath last time, aftershocks, tension, trust, fracturing. It all happened, all the things. And those aftershocks are continuing into this episode, but that's not what we're talking about. Today, when extremes meet, we are talking about how the city's just like really just getting worse. We're talking about how power is becoming leveraged and used and becoming more visible, forceful, personal, and it's intense. So we're going to be discussing, as chosen by Rahul, the lens of intimidation, power being used to shape behavior, silence resistance, create compliance, sometimes with not even needing to follow through. So get ready for intimidation. Not from me, but from everyone else. And the lens of water and element of water, lens of intimidation. Anyway, let's get started. This is Bending Not Breaking. There we go. Rahul, you chose intimidation. What is it?
Yeah, I mean, the denotation of intimidation from Cambridge Dictionary is the action of frightening or threatening someone, usually in order to persuade them to do something that you want them to do, but also as a definition within the U.S. Code of Law that I thought was also interesting to share, which is a serious act or course of conduct directed at a specific person that, one, causes fear or apprehension in such person, and two, serves no legitimate purpose. What a legitimate purpose is.
Yeah.
I think some people might beg to differ. Yeah, there would be some
An act that causes fear with no purpose. Interesting. I don't I have qualms with this definition, but that's probably because I'm not privy to said laws, but I just have problems with laws. Let's just be real.
Yeah, and I guess for context, this is sort of between the Victim and Witness Protection Act and Child Protection Act. So, like, they're usually talking about specific context, in which case, like, someone is trying to intimidate someone for, I guess, for some purpose, but if that purpose does not have a legal basis, then it's intimidation, I guess.
Interesting. So, tell me the last time you felt intimidated.
I mean, I feel like I generally feel intimidated by if I, I'm taking on a new challenge or something, I feel intimidated, but I feel like that's usually something that, like, it's natural to feel intimidated, but it is also a natural stepping stone for growth. But then there are also is intimidation that I thankfully don't experience that often, where it's clearly someone trying to exert power over someone else, which we see a lot in this episode.
That's actually a really good point about like the feeling of intimidation. Like I feel intimidated like by this circumstance, or like, yeah, I'm in a situation where like I'm trying to learn something, or where like growth is happening, right, where I'm not comfortable, and then that doesn't necessarily like indicate that someone is trying to intimidate me.
Mm-hmm.
Like it might not
Agreed.
be, yeah, like something that is purposeful. Because, yeah, I've definitely recently been in some situations where I felt intimidated by a person, but I don't think they were trying to necessarily, well, maybe they were, but I don't think they were trying to intimidate me. I think I just felt discomfort, like, by what we were doing and what they were trying to, like, teach me and lead me through. And I was like, oh, man, I'm gonna
I,
not feeling
I
most confident there.
I feel that way on reading some people's dating profile. I read the profile and then I'm like, whoa, 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 this is wildly intimidating. I'm never going to swipe right on this person. And like they, they know a lot about a certain subject that I know nothing about. And they're like, by the way, I would love for you to be able to be interested in this. And I'm like, nope, I'm too intimidated by that. Nope, see ya. I have been frightened away um, rather than intrigued. Um, but that is says more to do about me than it does about them. So interesting. Yeah. So I that to me feels a lot more like this second definition where it's like by active being, I have caused fear and apprehension in a person with no apparent purpose, or legitimate purpose. I'm just being, and that's scary to you. That feels
Mm.
like it's intimidating. Interesting. Okay. Well, I'm sure we'll get into more concrete examples with the episode. But before we do, as it is not my turn, I have excellent memory and will absolutely be inviting Rahul to do a 30-second recap. Uh,
Let's go.
are you ready?
Yep.
On your mark, get set, go.
Asami, Bolin, and Mako move to Air Temple Island. Korra's tensions with Tarlok rise, while she also kind of feels like a failure as the Avatar. The new team Avatar solidifies, and they try to cheer her up, and they end up getting arrested, among a lot of other non-Bender citizens after a disagreement over a city block is shut down by Tarlok. Korra confronts Tarlok, and after a brutal fight, he reveals he had bloodbend, capturing Korra and taking her away.
Ding!
Oh, that's pretty good.
That was like right on. Yeah,
That's pretty
yeah.
solid.
Very nice. Very nice. You know, some people just have the gene, of being able to do a 30-second recap. Some people have that gene and some people don't. And that was it. Okay. Uh where do we want to start? Where, what, intimidating, factor, who, what? Where are we going?
I feel like this is kind of a tough one because I think that we're going to be talking about it a lot with certain characters in different contexts. Because
Mm,
like what really stuck out to me is like Korra and Tarlok even have a conversation about how each of them uses intimidation. Um, but I guess like let's just start out with like a top level view of like Korra and Tarlok, at least within this episode, and how each of them tries to intimidate the other within their confrontations. Because that, I feel like, in many ways, that kind of drives the direction of the episode.
Yeah, they're in this kind of like, yeah, power struggle and trying to like one up each other, but it's like n not at the beginning anyways, but neither of them really like they're saying things, but it's hard for them to follow through because especially like on Cora's level, like what does she have to leverage? Her physical power, her presence, like her, but Tarlok, he has not less of that, but more like legal, like, or like, you know, like structural resources to leverage and then leverage it against people around her because he can't really do a lot to her specifically. So I don't know, it's just like a very it's like they're both trying to intimidate each other, but at the same time, the resources that they're trying to follow through with, I found, at least in this episode, to be like not easily just like not easily done, cumbersome, more so for Korra, I feel, than for TLOK.
Yeah, this episode, probably more than any other in season one, is just wildly problematic. um, I, I I had a lot of like I had a lot of ICE vibes with the police. I had a
Mm,
lot of um just using systemic ways to intimidate that Tarlok has access to. And Korra is in a really interesting. I really there's a part of me that really admires Korra in this episode, specifically in this like resistance to intimidation, where I think the general public was also resisting, right? They were protesting in a way when the power was turned out. They were coming to do their best to speak out and use their voice, and that was not working. And so there's this leverage of power of like you're right, like there's this power struggle, but there's a this is the power I'm leveraging, which is this systemic control and the ability to create law, policy, etc., to force people to do what I want them to do. And then there's Cora, who is, because of my position and privilege, I am able to subvert this thing that you're trying to do and make it less impactful. But to the point of the person who says, "You're our avatar too," the non-bender specifically, who says you're our avatar also, like the way she's going about it is not necessarily serving the people, it's serving her personal grudge in a way, um
mm.
which I don't know, like there's this weird dynamic that I'm trying to figure out with these two, right? Because they it feels like it's a mix between personal and public in terms of how their intimidation is functioning. Um, I've somewhat derailed from the original question, but like commenting on these two at large, trying not to zoom in into any particular point quite yet. But yeah, it's wild. There's a lot going on.
It kind of felt like to me, kind of like when Cora gets to Republic City at the beginning, how she realizes that there's like this like law, like there's laws, there's police, there's regulations, there's all these systematic like things that are barriers that are kind of in the way of her doing justice. It feels kind of like a rehashing of that to me, at least in this moment where she's trying to stand up for something, right? To stand up for these people. She's trying to stop Tarlock, obviously, but once again it's like yeah, those barriers are still there, like what, and it makes her feel powerless. And then
Hmm.
on top of that, Tarlock being like, you're just a half-baked avatar, which in my head I'm like, Cora, his words, like why does what he says, at least in that context, why does that matter to you so much? I mean, it's obviously touching on her own insecurities and her deep fears. He's kind of like latching onto those, but at the same time I'm like, oh, that's just a bummer that he can reach even further. He's already, got the police trucks, whatever, and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so other thoughts?
Yeah, I think some of the challenge of this particular episode for Korra and dealing with Tarlock is the fact that, as he points out, her primary tool is also intimidation. So when he goes to arrest a whole bunch of citizens and she just lifts up huge rocks to try and attack the police and then realizes, oh, this isn't really going to work, what other path forward does she really have in her arsenal?
And I think
Yeah.
that's the question that I was thinking about, right? I think she underestimates the power she has when it comes to uh, social. She has a lot of social capital and power that she does not leverage at all.
Yeah.
Um, and that's because she doesn't know how. I think this is an ability issue, not a motivation issue. I think that if she knew how to, give speeches and rally the troops and ask people to stand up to tyranny, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that she would she would do very well at that. And I think we see her do that sometimes in later episodes, things like that, where she is speaking to the general public. But we also see her fail at that. But I do think she has a lot more social power than she realizes as the Avatar. But even then, the question becomes, well, what do I do? If I'm a non-bender, I'm not the Avatar. What are the ways I can resist this? And that's a really difficult question to ask when my power is being shut off and I'm being intimidated into acting a certain way. Like if I'm in the sector that doesn't get my power turned off, I'm going to be way less likely to go resist if I think my power is going to get turned off because of it. Um, and so in it's really frustrating because leveraging that power is something that the episode is really kind of showing us that Tarlok is a villain, right? Of some element in some way, shape, or form, even though he is technically on the side of trying to resist Amon, who is also a villain. But also, Amon's got a lot of good points. And it seems like Tarlok doesn't. So it's really an interesting dynamic that we've got going in this episode where we're seeing, okay, Amon's not the only problem here. The reason Amon exists is because of people like Tarlok, who is a bender wielding and leveraging power over non-benders, right? And so it's like the exception proving the rule almost, where we have, Korra who does it unintentionally and by accident. And then we have Tarlok who does it on purpose. Um, that's, I think, one of the big
Mm,
differences.
It's also
yeah.
interesting how in they kind of switch roles in their like tactics of intimidation, or at least how I was kind of viewing it this time. So in the beginning, Tarlock is doing more of the cutting down Korra with words, right? You're just a half-baked avatar, and then him taking the task force and rounding up, the citizens and showing not only the avatar, but non-benders and even benders alike, right? That like in the public's eye, he has a ton of power, right? And
Hmm.
then Cora is trying to do more of the using her physicality, right, in order
Hmm.
to intimidate him and take back control over the situation. And then near the end, we kind of see that switch where, yes, Cora goes to see him after hours and on her own, but in the same sense, you could almost think of that more as in that instance, maybe she was trying to use her words more, right? Which is why she didn't take not necessarily backup with her, right? But like she went on her own and was like, I can do this. I'm not just a half baked avatar, right? And then Tarlock turns and starts to use his literal power to then cause the intimidation, right? Like he begins to bend and things like
Hmm.
that. And then it forces Korra into a bending fight, right? And then we see the ultimate power play that he's been holding back, that he is more powerful than her in this moment because he can blood bend without the power of a full moon.
Yeah, I can't help but track like the use of body, right, in this whole exchange, not just like from the whole episode, the physicality, right, matters, place matters, your body matters. Um, and it's interesting that it devolves into I the only way I can control you, if not by all of these other means, is by your body. And so, like, body as the ultimate locus of control, right, is an interesting framework where first I'm going to try all of these, psychological tactics. I'm going to use I'm like, it's almost like I'm gonna be very broad with my intimidation, and I'm gonna go and zoom in until I've gotten to the point, until I have no other option than to use force. um yeah, it's yuck, ick, yuck,
Mm.
indeed. Yes.
I think it's interesting too that when Korra calls him out, saying like, you're just like you're doing exactly what Amon says. Like you're literally feeding into exactly what he's saying. Like, aren't you trying to stop? Like, isn't the goal to like not do that since we don't want people to join his side? Um, I don't even, I mean, maybe I could be wrong. I don't even think he's got a response to that. Like I don't remember hearing like a clear like rebuttal other than like I do what I want, or like I'm gonna make
Uh-uh.
it illegal to be I'll make it illegal to be an equalist, like not even, I don't know. He just really has like no, not even like a Delulu like moral grandstanding moment. And I think that's actually a little bit interesting because like we kind of expect him to be like, I'm doing this for, keep going on like that greater good bullshit that he was on earlier. But he's really just like, and I'm done. Like, I'm done with the talking part. Like Maggie said, he kind of switches. He's like, now I'm going to go straight into, let's see if I can kidnap you.
Yeah, I think that feeds into like another kind of question I had, which is how much of Tarlok's actions is him actually trying to intimidate people versus him like responding to his own sense of intimidation by Amon, by Korra, by you know other systems. I guess like in another way to phrase it would be like how much of it this is him being proactive versus reactive
Mm.
to what's happening.
you know I am not sure about this, but to me, what it feels like is that Tarlok has an agenda, uh, and Amon is enabling him to enact his agenda. In that, I believe Tarlok wants to be in a position of power and be the leader of Republic City. I think he has all but Tenzin in his pocket. And I think that the way he's able to do that is by leveraging this angle. And so to me, it feels like a means to an end, where because of the exact thing that Amon is targeting, right? He is able, like, in a way, Amon makes Tarlok better equipped to use these tacks to
Gives
begin
him a
to
legitimate purpose.
it gives him a legitimate excuse to enact these things. And so it's this weird, like, double-edged sword of resisting power and trying to speak up and leverage and do it in such a way that is an extreme. And that is again, we're using the episode title here. We have the extreme of Amon, who is saying we're going to start doing some shit, which is going to lead the opposite extreme of, oh, I want to be in power. This is a way for me to be in power. So I'm going to use this to catapult myself and my agenda further forward, which is further like positioning Amon as maybe not bad guy, maybe good guy, but also bad guy. And so it's just really complicates things. And it's like the original I this was the end of policing episode when we did the original run with Alex Vital, who wrote the end of policing, and we were talking a lot about how this is why it's a problem, is because people like Tarlock are like creating this person where Korra and Tenzin go to, whatever his name is, Captain Saigon, uh, and you are the worst chief ever. And that's where I felt Ice was just like, this is not okay. This is not okay. We have they are arrested indefinitely
Yeah, yeah,
until this
yeah.
task force deems them safe. And that is a wild way to say, I don't give a fuck, right? And that was like, yeah. And damn it, if I was not pissed off at Tenzin for saying, I'll resolve this in the morning. We just need to be patient. I'm like, no, fuck this noise. Absolutely not. Break them out right now. And
Right?
he might be right that being patient in this situation might be the right, but I was like so ick factored that I was like, no, no, bad, nope, ick, get, break out, resist, tear it all
Mm.
down, burn it all down.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm at.
Well, and the be patient and wait until the morning is such the airbender way, right? Like I feel like that's him really trying to channel what he thinks an airbender would be, right? Being the only adult airbender currently in the world, right? And then also like the weight of being the Avatar's son, but the only son that can airbend. Because I feel like the part of him that is so much more Katara based, right? When he like goes back to yell, which is just so great. You really are the worst ever. And he like gets that like
Mhm.
animated angry face, which just is such a great throwback to how Katara responded in many situations. Um, but I feel like there's like I don't know, not the internal there are two wolves and the one that you feed, but I feel like there is that side of him that is more action led because he is more of a hothead, right? And more
Mhm.
like let's do it, we'll do the things, which is so similar to his mom and how she was, but because I think if he was not the only adult airbender, he would be different in his
Mhm.
actions, but because he's literally the only adult airbender around, I think that's where the patience and we'll try again in the morning and the let's be diplomatic about it comes into play. But
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
me too.
I think Tenzin also in I mean, I think that maybe he believes that the laws will also govern like the law keepers, the lawmakers. Like I feel like he believes that based on like he's like the police can't keep them. Like that would be illegal. And like the legality of that will save those people. And if I like continue following like what the protocols are, like what the law says, like that should resolve itself. I feel like he kind of believes that in some ways,
Yeah.
but I also agree that he does have this kind of like other like devil on your shoulder. Yeah, like this is not going to work. Eventually, you see that come out, like Maggie was saying, in other places. But yeah, I feel like he's just somebody who believes that like the system should be able to also govern itself,
Yeah,
which
and
it don't. But
well, that's what's so interesting about this show and shows like it, right? I think Atla does the same thing, right? It wants to follow the law, but it also resists it when necessary, right? We see Chief Beifong last episode doing the very same thing, right? We have this constant push and pull between following what is, socially expected in terms of doing the right thing and also standing up for what is right in a way of like, nope, this is past the point of I'm willing to go outside the law and do what is right. Um, so it's just a wild, wild ride because, you know, Aang's constantly breaking laws and breaking rules, right? Like literally going against the Earth King literally in every way, shape, and form until they can talk to him and actually have a conversation with them, like resisting the Daily all the way through. Like there's just constant resistance. And it's one of those things where in this show, there is a lot more tension in Korra, right? With going against and resisting, and that I feel is just frankly more real, which is why I think a lot of people are turned off of the show. But yeah, I it's rough. It's rough out here, folks.
Yeah, Atla's really like a D&D campaign where you're just kind of like doing whatever. There's no police. And then like Korra is kind of like, actually, I have played D&D campaigns where there were police and taxes, and low key it sucked because there was consequences for literally everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm spending a lot more time rolling persuasion checks than intimidation checks because yeah, suddenly it's, there's like a, you know, an actual moral quandary to be had. I feel like in Korra there really is. It really presses on people's buttons
Yeah.
to watch
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Well, and especially too, because in Atla, we see so much of the kingdoms have, like, we have an Earth King, right? And like we have a Fire Nation Lord, right? So those are things that are more abstract to understand because we're like, ah, yes, this was forever ago. So it's easier to be uncomfortable. And like, of course, a king that is quote unquote bad and like oppressing the people should be overthrown. And of course, a fire lord that is, committing genocide should be, taken down, even though it takes, 100 years to finally like make that happen. But then it gets uncomfortable when you go, oh, but we have these systems of government and we have councils and we have task force.
Yeah.
And we want like, wow, like it's no longer like, oh, something that's abstract of like the king is the ruler, the fire lord is the ruler, and now you're seeing systems of government that are very similar to our systems of government, and you're going, ooh, that just makes me think about the current state of the world a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, this was written well before ice, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, was it though? Because ice has been around a lot longer than people realize.
I think it was written before it was
Maybe
popularized in
Okay.
before they were
I mean, it was
hiring
written
randos off the street.
during the
yeah.
Obama administration when people were not scrutinizing those things as much, even if they may have existed.
Correct. Yeah. It was not in
Right.
public discourse
Yeah.
as nearly as much as it is today.
But also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
I think that the way each show positions itself within the discussion of power dynamics is slightly different. Where with Atla, we are constantly positioned within the oppressed group. So Aang and like pretty much every member of Team Avatar has been like personally affected by the Fire Nation in some capacity as an imperialist force. Aang, his people they experienced a genocide.
Yeah.
Katara and Sokka, their mother was killed. She's the only waterbender left because of the firebenders, Fire Nation taking away all their benders. When they enter the Earth Kingdom, they're entering as outsiders to this system that seeks to control the flow of information within the community. Within Korra, or Korra Season 1 specifically, the power dynamic is bender, non-bender, but the story positions itself primarily with the benders because Korra is a bender. So it's with 12 episodes, it's almost an impossible task to cover it with all the nuance it deserves, of having this story where you are exploring how this power dynamic is exploited when you are primarily following the people that hold the power.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously also Amon is like the villain of the story.
Mm-hmm.
I know we've discussed it before, they don't really do enough to sort of expand on, like, well, what lessons are we taking away from what Amon was doing, even if he was doing it in a really shitty way? What are lessons we can take from this
Yeah.
to, make changes in our society so that non-benders, you know, feel like they have some agency within society?
Yeah. 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 Um, so I mean, there's a lot going on, clearly. I kind of want to, we've been zoomed out largely. We've narrowed in and focused on some moments, but part of me wants to use a few of these moments to kind of just understand intimidation more up close. Um, and so mostly to say, like, how do we recognize it? Right. So me as an average citizen in, Podunk, North Carolina, how do we go ahead and say, okay, this law is intimidating. This is an act of intimidation. How can we begin to point out to these things and say, this is what this is in real life? And so using some of the examples in here as, okay, here are the tells for what an intimidating policy looks like. Um, and so I'm curious about that because it's easy, it feels like, to see when watching this episode. Um, so, the idea of enforcing a curfew, enforcing arrests, and the idea of that feels like that. Yeah, that's an act of intimidation. It's very clear that Tarlock is doing that to uh, scare equalists into compliance. Um, but I could easily hear someone saying, "Well, they deserve it. That's what should happen to the equalists." Um, so where's the line? What's the problem with this?
Mm. I mean, I think something like a curfew, I think that speaks to like a policy like that speaks to control of information, control of movement, and a limitation of freedoms. I feel like that maybe should not be infringed upon. So I feel like a policy or a law like that, when it's put into place, that's a red flag. And I
Yeah,
don't really know a lot about that situation in Korea, but do you remember when the president declared martial law and then basically everybody was like, no, you're not doing that. And they stopped it from happening. I don't know a lot about that, but that strikes me as an example, right? They were trying to institute one of these emergency policies in order
yeah,
to do something, like in order to help people or control a situation. And people were like, no, you have no legal grounds to do that.
yes. Well, it's the same thing of like sending, police XYZ to stop a protest that is legal and
Hmm.
where no one is being hurt or harmed, right? And that happens frequently nowadays. So it's the issue for me is, Tenzin says it, right? Like we are punishing the whole for the actions of the few.
Hmm.
And yet we see it in classrooms where if this happens again, the whole class is going to get silent lunch. And like that is just called discipline. And this is how it works. And of course that's been criticized, but that doesn't change behavior, right? And so it's one of those things where there somehow, some way, our culture believes that this is the best way. Like this act of exerting control over everyone for the actions of the few is acceptable, and not only acceptable, encouraged in some instances, right? Like we have to assume that these other council people were in agreement and weren't just
Hmm.
intimidated by Tarlock. We like there's an assumption that they believe that what Tarlock is saying is the right course of action. And I think the story would have given us more around like, here's, this person whispering in their ear saying, if you don't, Tarlock will. And we don't see that. So there's this assumption that they believe it. They believe this
Mhm.
is the right thing to do, which is trash. But like, here we are. And I don't know, like,
And I think some people say like also like, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, you shouldn't have a problem with it.
yes, right?
And but it's like it's a very slippery slope. And I mean, I
Yeah,
don't, and not to say I really know much about it. Surely I have definitely punished a whole class for the actions of only a few children. I have done that. So who's to say I'm not the problem?
right? Right? Kelly's the
But
problem. We've landed
I'm the
on the
problem. Mind
issue.
you, at a micro level, like we're talking about a micro level, if I say
Yes.
if you don't stop touching your classmates, freeze dance will be over, and freeze dance is over. Thankfully, that's not infringing on their rights as humans, so I think I'm in the clear, but the philosophy behind it still stands, whether it's, that level or this level.
The philosophy behind it still stands. Interesting.
I
Yeah,
mean,
so I don't know. Like the idea that Tarlock has positioned himself in a way to be able to arrest literally anyone is, I think, the issue, right? Where, of course, if you are doing something illegal, right, then you should be arrested.
if you just
But
sat at
like,
home in the dark and
but
just kept
when,
quiet,
but like when what is illegal is existing, that's a problem because now we can arrest anyone. Or when, Captain What's His Face says we are able to arrest anyone who is suspected of being an equalist,
hmm
that is a problem. And so it's this. Uh, I think Tenzin says they have a right to due process,
hmm
and the problem is due process is gone. There is no due process.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess like the idea of
Forrest should have gone to
positioning
law school. Sorry.
just positioning self to be in a position of arbitering being an arbiter of law, right, without any sort of checks and balances
Mm,
is exactly what has happened and exactly where we are in the United States government today, right? Checks and balances essentially don't exist for people who are in the government, right? And if they do exist, it's one of those things where we feel too intimidated, right, to respond because we're going to go to jail, right? Um,
well,
so
and some of
again,
these things, sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. No,
I was just saying some of these,
do it. Say the
sorry,
thing.
sorry. I was just saying some of the resistance is also about resources and money. Like, do you even have enough money to go to jail? Do you have enough money to get a lawyer? A lot of these things, these like resistance are services that are monetized. They're private, like for you to have the capacity to get all that. I mean, not everybody can.
Yeah, yeah. Because, not only is the issue of, okay, you're right. We should be able to arrest anyone who's doing the wrong thing. Why would you care if you were doing the right thing? And then people who are doing the right thing resist. It's like, nope, you're doing the wrong thing. We need to take care of you too because you're subverting our ability to control. So anybody who resists is in effect just as bad as the people they're claiming to want to arrest, which is exactly why people who are protesting is a problem. Um, so yeah, I'm just icked. It's a big ick. Ick.
Mm.
I feel like one thing that this whole discussion has also made me think of is okay, obviously these curfews are they they seem to be implemented citywide, but they are disproportionately impacting the non-bending population.
Mm-hmm.
Leads to the next question
I think
of
the
like,
curfew was only for
The
non-benders.
curfew
it
was
is.
specifically for non-benders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, curfew specific. Thank you for correcting that. So curfew specifically for non-benders leads to the question: how do you know who's a bender and non-bender? That's answered in the episode of like we have separate neighborhoods for benders and non-benders.
They're in the slums. Oh my
They
God.
can turn the power off specifically for non-benders.
Yep.
You know?
This is fucked up, you guys.
Yeah.
But let's talk about how actually real that is,
Yeah.
right? Like that's why it's so uncomfortable because it's so real.
We haven't even gotten into the non-bender redlining or the gerrymandering yet,
Yeah.
and
right?
But it also makes me think of like how long do we think that this kind of separation has been going on? Do you think like it isn't really discussed in Atla at all, but do you think like in each of these cities, like do you think in Omashu, do you think in Ba Sing Se, in the Northern Water Tribe, they also have this kind of separation of like, oh, like this is a non-bending neighborhood, this is a bending neighborhood, because it feels like, you know, Republic City, it almost feels like this is a natural thing that happened because like as soon as you have like more than one bender that kind of bender that exists in the space, the dichotomy becomes like bender non-bender versus being a more, you know, I don't know.
I think this is an inevitable result of technology. And specifically why it's happening in Republic City is because the innovative ability to capitalize on people's bending for work, right? Where the rapid expansion and need for, you know, and this is covered in the comics, right? Where we want to pay benders to do this because it is much like we can't pay a non-bender to do this. They don't have the skill, right? And so in a skill-based economy, right, we are leveraging the haves over the have-nots. And so you're going to get better jobs if you can bend. You're going to be able to do that. And I think in when we were working with, you know, villages that were in the middle of nowhere that had anything, I don't think there was that much of a discrepancy. Uh, but as we centralize and as we continue to lean more on a currency, right, that is unique to all of these nations. It's one of those things where like, okay, now we need firebenders to do this, we need earthbenders to do this, but we need waterbenders to do this, right? And so like all of the people and their skill sets, like I don't know that that exists in just an earthbender economy, because if my brother can earthbend, I don't know that I care if I can earthbend from a financial standpoint because our house is covered, right? Um, so I don't know. I don't know. This is my supposition that this is late stage capitalism playing a role in the growth and development of this growing economy.
I mean, if it's the 1920s, we don't have any like we don't have, we're still like in right after, like we're like post Civil War, everyone's still it's fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's also
1960s haven't happened yet. Sorry, go ahead, Rahul.
No, sorry. It's also a really good point because the throughout the show, the non-benders that we do see excel are these like very wealthy capitalists that do seek to like exploit the people and systems around them, like Hiroshi Sato, like Varric.
Yes.
And also, like, it makes me almost like more sad that we don't get to see Sokka at all in the show because he's dead by now. Because it would be really cool to see his perspective as someone who also has that kind of like innovation mindset and is a non-bender, but would be more equitable in how he approaches those problems given his experiences with Aang and the rest of the gang. Um, so missing
Yeah,
that.
I'm it's it is not an accident, right, that the non-bender in Team Avatar is a person of privilege, right? It is not an accident, right? That what can a non-bender in this environment bring to the table? And while she is exceptionally talented martial artist, if we remove that, right, what does she bring to the table? She brings all of her privilege of her name and her ability to negotiate with certain people and her, like, and that's not knocking Asami. It's saying that's the dynamic that makes her functional in this team, right? Which is shitty. And also, like, it's the same reason, like, Toph, in order to be able to be in Team Avatar as a blind person, had to be exceptionally talented as a
Mm,
bender,
mm,
right? And so there's this, like, okay, how we have this supposed deficit. How do we make up for said deficit by giving them something else that is entrenched in the writing of this, which again is not necessarily a good or a bad thing. Like, there's a lot of beauty in Toph as a character, as we like, they're like one of the most beloved characters in the history of the franchise. And yet, right, the writing in and of itself is suggesting that something is going on with that. Um, yeah, it's, yep, here we are.
mm.
Well, and also without Asami, even in this episode, we wouldn't have the teens be able to go around the city, right? Because it's due to her ability to not only drive but have a
Yeah.
automobile,
Access to the vehicle itself.
access to the vehicle, and then she even, right, there's that moment where she's like, my dad installed the police scanners into all of our own vehicles. And then she has that moment of, oh, I see why he would do that now, right? That
Mhm.
hindsight as, 2020.
Um, so intimidation, icky,
Mhm.
don't do it.
0 stars.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I I don't know. I like, and I think part of the issue is I don't have a good answer, right, for what to do instead, right? It's easy for me to say, yeah, don't enact a curfew, dummy. But at the same time, like, I think the council has a responsibility to respond. But I
Mm,
also think they have a responsibility to not do dumb shit. But the problem is I don't have a suggestion. And I'm
mm.
sure that a lot of smart people do, but I, am not one of those people. Um, so it's trash. I can tell you what not to do. I'm like, nope, bad idea. I don't have a better idea, but don't do that.
And I hate to say
Um,
it, but yeah, as like there's a person that I'm friends with on Facebook who is like a council person in Saginaw, Michigan, where we're at, and she posts a lot about the council decisions that she votes on and why she votes on them, and like, man, it's complicated. It's complicated. Like, she voted no on something that everyone else voted yes, and everyone's kind of like, "Why'd you vote no? Like, you're crazy," like. But she like listed, and I think that, not that I have the answers either, but I don't think Tarlock is acting in good faith. He's not acting in a people first, like a community first centered mindset. I don't think that he is like using the right guidebook on this situation here, and I think that, yeah, equals bad.
well, and again, like, it just speaks to my having watched this time and time again now, right? Like, I believe that Tarlock is doing this for personal reasons, more so than he is
Hmm.
doing it for the apparent thing that the show wants us to believe, which is that he's doing it for the right reasons, the wrong way.
Yeah, no way.
Which, and I don't believe it. I think that he is selfish and wants to be in power and is leveraging all of this chaos in order to get there, which is again only proving Amon right. Um, so that's and it's just so funny because the fact that they're brothers makes a huge statement to say like,
Mm.
oh, so now we're going to say that because we're traumatized, you're either going to be in this position or this position, right? Having bad daddy means you're going to be this or this. And of course, thank goodness we have Zuko to show us the that's not necessarily true, but like I think it does show us like, oh, it can lead you to be doing the right thing for the wrong reasons or the wrong thing for the right reasons, and they're both bad. Ugh. Okay. Any other points that we want to make sure we touch on when it comes to intimidation in the episode?
I think we're good to move on.
Hearing none. Da-na-na-na. This is like my new like transition music, just no matter what. It's just that's it. Um
Final
so
countdown.
we are counting down to Twee and La, where we are noticing the push and pull of the episode, what pulls us in, what pushes us away. I had a lot of both. And I'm curious what in this episode stuck with you in terms of pushing and pulling.
I mean, I think primary push for me, I already kind of discussed, which is it, the show bringing up a lot of these questions of like power dynamics with benders and not benders, and not really exploring it as much as the subject really needs, especially when it's very much aligning itself with the people like that have the power.
Mm,
But I feel like that is like a more large scale.
yeah, yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
that
Um,
was
no, no, okay, no, I'm doing it. It's my turn. So the thing that comes up for a push that feels like the thing that I just have a lot of resistance to is specifically in this moment with Cora Tarlock in the office, where he's just sent his secretary away, leave us. And he kind of drops all pretense and says, had your friends arrested because I need you. You're the reason I did that. And so here we have a very clear admittance that this was not because I think what I was doing is right. This is me exerting my control over you to get you to do what I think is right. And even then, it's not a suggestion that what I think I'm doing is right. It's just I want to be in control of you and have you in my pocket. And it is just this is the moment where it becomes clear that he's not doing this for the right reasons. This is the moment that is like, okay, you've said the quiet part out loud. um, so that's the moment where I'm just like, you little shit, schmuck,
is that pulling you
quit.
in? Is this a pull?
No, that was a push. That was
That
a
was a
push.
push. Okay.
What pulls me in is that back wall was fucking cool. Having like the pattern with behind it and then the waterfall like constant. That's
Yeah,
that's super cool architecture. I'm in like that. I want that as my office. That's fucking cool.
it's real. It was a good Good fight. Good use of the architecture for fighting.
I thought it was super cool. I loved all of that scene. I think it's phenomenally visual as much as it is tummy upset.
Mm. My push and pull is like so dumb. Uh, I'm more like a chronic Milo hater. Like
What?
I know. It's a red flag. I have so many red flags, but that's definitely one of them. I just like low key, he just annoys me. Um, and like the whole like the farting thing, just like that pushes me away. But when I was watching it this time, he also was kind of pulling me in though, because he's just like a little baby. Like
Yeah.
he's just a little guy. And so I feel like this time it's kind of like a push and a pull. Like I normally when I watch Korra, I'm like, God, just get Milo out of my sight. I hate Milo, sick of him. But this time I was watching, I was like, oh, he's just so cute. Besides, I'm not really
Sunshine's dog is named Milo.
I don't know, just I was watching it with a little bit more fondness for Milo. I was like, you know what? And the part where he calls Asami beautiful lady or beautiful woman or whatever, we will meet again. I was endeared by that this time. Normally I'm like, shut the fuck up, Milo. But this time I was kind of into it. So I don't know. That's my push and my pull. I'm conflicted about Milo.
Mm, fascinating. Fascinating. Yeah,
One of the polls I had were just Iki and Janora as they're showing around the
absolutely.
queen.
Yes.
It was so cool to see both of their personalities and then just like the interaction of the siblings, right? Janora like sticking her fingers in her ears as, you know, Iki is like screaming over the cute little Pablo animals and all of the things, and then the yes, yes, no, no, and 111 or 110, whatever, for the trees.
That moment with Bolin where he just responds with the same energy to Iki, like there's a little
Mhm.
bit of like I do that to kids too.
Yes.
And like, oh, you're gonna go there. Okay. And then I'm gonna do the exact same thing, expecting them to get overwhelmed and so that they'll kind of understand how I felt in the moment. And then she just comes back and it's just like, yeah, 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 yeah. And I know all those answers. And it's just like,
I love it.
oh, I'm outmatched. Okay. And so I love that moment. I don't know if that was Boleyn's intention, but like that is the intention I sometimes respond with that kind of thing with. So I'm like, let me see how do you enjoy that interaction? Did you like that? And then it's just like, bam. I'm like, okay, you win.
And I
I'm
feel like that's
outmatched.
how Bolin took it in the show too. Like he has that moment of like processing and he just goes, cool. Okay. And then
Yep.
like proceeds
Yep.
to walk on like, wow.
Oh, I still need to give a pull. I think my pull is generally like pretty much the whole second half of this episode, because I think the first half, they even say in the audio commentary, like the first half of this episode is a lot of walking and talking,
Hmm.
because a lot of stuff happened the last couple episodes, so they want a breather, but it's also like honestly like exposition dump time. There's story stuff that we need to do, and it's the like, you know, kind of the easiest way to do it. Uh, and then like, but it's also setting up the second half of the episode, which is like gives us these really cool moments, like Korra confronting Tarlok, because they're in many ways like kind of similar characters. Um, and also having the reveal at the end of Tarlok being a bloodbender, which
Yeah.
is nuts. I wonder what the implications of that are going to be, huh?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it really is a good episode in that I have an emotional response. I
Yeah.
have I am invested in what is happening in this episode. And so in that regard, it's an excellent piece of media. Um, and just ugh, yeah. Yeah. Um, I mentioned this earlier, but I think it's worth just mentioning it quickly again is Korra is saying you're the worst chief ever, and then Tenzin's like, we're gonna be doing this the right way. and you are the worst person ever. And I think that kind of solidarity in that moment felt important to me. So I just mentioned that again as something that pulled me in. Calling
Oh,
out shit when it happens.
also when is it Iki
Yes.
says, "Did you know that Korra likes Mako?" And then
Yeah.
the animation of Korra is like that face, like, and then Iki does it later when Korra is like,
Shuts her
"Run
out.
along,
Yeah.
Iki." It's just so funny. I feel like we don't see that ever again in the series. I mean, I'm probably wrong, but I feel like it's such like a one-off, like girls being girl, like girls being
Yeah.
girl things. But yeah, it's cracking me up.
It is funny. Uh anything else pushing and pulling?
Well, I guess like discussing that moment a little more in the commentary, they also say like they used it, I think, less in Korra, especially like animations like they do for Iki's, because like one of the things that like Mike and Brian said is that like they don't want like casual viewers, I guess, to be like or like very invested viewers to either like complain or be confused by the fact like, hey, her eyes were glowing. Isn't that a thing only the avatar can do? So it's like what's actually like happening versus like what is
Mm,
just like communicating.
yeah, or like some of those like
I loved
anime
it.
conventions where like the character
Yeah.
suddenly turns like cute or suddenly looks different or
Turns
suddenly
chibi. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Korra definitely has like less of those kind of like conventions.
Yeah. Ugh, so good. Ugh, annoyingly good. Okay. Uh, uh, Rahul, uh, uh, you have the lens. It's the element
Element,
of
Ben, the element.
element, element of water. That is your responsibility, and you theoretically have prepared a exercise for us on the element of water and in context of this episode. So tell us about it. What are we doing?
Yeah, so this one's called Ripple Effect, where each host
Boom.
is going to name one small change or insight from the episode they hope will ripple outward into their thinking, relationships, or the wider world. And listeners are also invited to reflect on what ripple they might start this week slash month slash.
So we're trying to create a butterfly effect here. Okay.
Mhm.
Nope, that's an airbending one.
That's
Stop.
a
Um, uh,
It's
so
called a ripple effect, Ben.
yeah. A small ripple becoming bigger, bigger, bigger. Except really, they just anyway. Okay. Uh, change your insight that they hope will ripple outward. Interesting.
I got it. Already
Go
got it.
for it. Let's hear it.
I'm gonna reflect on my group punishment of my kids when they're being bad. I really
Mm,
reserve it for mostly for the end, like specific moments where I know that we're going to be wrapping up anyways. So it's not like I'm using it indiscriminately, but I'm gonna think on that. I'm gonna think on that because,
what message are you conveying, right? What message do you want them to walk away with?
well, hey, sometimes I'm trying to help students understand that their actions have consequences not only for themselves but for class as a whole. But I'm not sure that this is the way to do it, right? I want my students to be able to develop an understanding, a conscientiousness of that the world around them is not like living, it's not independent of them. They are not an independent entity when we were in the school environment. But at the same time, there might be better avenues. Granted, like I said, freeze dance, not the end of the world, but and I need kids to be safe and not choking each other out.
Fair.
So, you
See,
know,
this is the line. What's the line,
it
right?
is,
How do
but
you get?
I'm gonna reflect on it. I want to reflect on
Mm-hmm.
it and see if I can find other avenues.
Mm, I love it. That seems like a little ripple from a conversation from earlier. I love it.
I mean, doesn't it say insight from the episode? I guess it's not specifically from the episode, but it is
It's from
because
this episode.
exactly.
Yes, 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 yes. Excellent. Excellent.
I think I'm going to be focusing on kind of what we discussed around how the treatment of non-benders could have changed over time. You know, if you just have an earth-bending society, it might be different how non-benders and benders are sort of situated within a city versus, you know, when we get to Republic City, where the dichotomy could be amplified. And thinking specifically on how within our context things don't just exist how they are, and that's like, you know, that's the truth, that is reality. Things evolve over time, and you know, social dynamics and how like people like spread throughout cities, or it's something that happens naturally but also can be influenced and manufactured by systems of power. So like continuing to think about those things. There's, you know, like it's the Kamala Harris quote of like, you think you just fell out of a coconut tree. No. Like things happen and things change, and like just be mindful of the nuance around how those dynamics are shaped.
Hmm.
Good, good, good. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
You going? I'm going. You have
Go,
thoughts?
go for it. I'm still mulling.
Okay. I was thinking about how we see an example here of a few non-benders, right, gather, and then it's not enough. And I've been thinking a lot on, obviously, with all of the things that are recently happening in our current, you know, time frame and time loop that we live in, how a lot of it is so segregated in the sense of like it's not a big movement, and then going to kind of like wider spectrum of like a different show where it's technically a movie, but like how in Finding Nemo, like there's the scene where they get caught in the net, and then only when the fish all begin to swim down are they
Yes,
over able to overpower this system of oppression. And I've been saying a
yes.
lot recently of like, well, if only we could swim down more, or like more people understood the concept of let's swim down as a
Power of the
collective,
people, baby.
the power of the people, and just wanting to like continue to put that out into those that I am in like community with, to
Yeah.
remind that if we swim down, we are stronger than those in power. But in order for that to work, like it is a community of.
Yeah, you know, I was reading, I forget where I read this percentage, so I could be wrong, but I think it's the percentage of people needed to be taking actionable steps is only like 3% in order to stop like a dictatorship from actually like enacting a certain thing. Like if there's 3% resistance, that is enough to counteract the problem. But to I think to the issue in that is spoken to in this episode is sometimes saying this is what's going to happen to you and then never needing to follow through is enough to prevent that kind of action. And so it just is a bummer. So yeah, I part of me wants to just be like, yes, let's be part of the 3% required that actually does something in response to these things happening, and you know, maybe votes, or maybe does more than vote, right? Maybe actually is taking actionable steps to resist. And yeah, if we could all do that, that'd be pretty nice. Seems like, right? Seems like it could be pretty good. Um, yeah. I also think like there's a part of me that wants to say like I will I want to channel Korra a little bit and just be a little bit more uh I want to use my body more in terms of that kind of resistance. And that doesn't mean I want to throw rocks at and, revolt that way, but like kind of like how can I use my actual physical body in better ways, knowing that I'm also in a position of power and privilege, at least respectively. Um, so yeah, those are the things that I was mulling on and trying to chew on in response to this prompt. Um, and I also wish that we didn't need ripples and the water could just be calm. That's where I'm at. Okay. Uh, Instead of wallowing in my sorrow, let's practice gratitude. Um, let's think about who in this episode are you thankful for and why? Easy pickings here, folks.
I'm going for Bolin, I think.
Bold
As long
choice.
as it's
Let's see how it turns
he's the
out.
one. Okay, so near the part of the episode where Cora's like crying on the cliffside, and they come up and I mean, I think it's Bolin, right? So they're like, "What's wrong?" And Mako's like, "You can tell us." Like, and she's like, "I just feel so alone." And I think it's Bolin who like starts like retelling the history of like Aang and like and how they had a gang and how like you're not alone, like you have us, and like he starts making this like very like direct connection. And I just think that's great because it's I mean, usually like if someone's like, "I feel so alone," right? A lot of times we're like, oh yeah, that's really
I'm
tough.
right
Like you
here
don't want to
with
like,
you.
yeah, I mean, I was thinking like what I do is I'd be like, yeah, that's really tough. I would never say to someone who's like, I feel alone, I'm right here. What do you mean you feel alone? But the way that he does it, I feel like is like he's offering like physical support, like not just being like, I'm here. What do you mean? Like I'm here to help you. I'll give you a hug. He's like, we got your back. Like we're gonna do this together. Like you don't have to do it alone. And like some actual like substance to what he's saying. And he's right. They can do it together.
Mm.
So
Team Avatar starts here, right? It's like this
yes.
is where they start referring to themselves that way, um, which is pretty neat. Um, Lovely. Anyone else?
I'm gonna say Korra for just because like there's a moment that I thought of that I wanted to talk about and I forgot about, but there's a moment
Mm.
where she calls Tarlok a weasel snake, and I love
Hmm.
that because it begs the question like is a weasel snake because both weasel and snake are used to describe someone who's like duplicitous and like
Hmm.
sneaky, conniving. So like is a weasel snake like is it twice as damning as like calling him a weasel or calling him a snake? Or is it supposed to be like equating to each of those in our world because those are both used
Yeah,
to describe that? But I just love that.
yeah. No, of all the animals to be combined, that is a fun little combo. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. Mm.
I'm
Yes.
thankful for Tenzin for we didn't really talk about this moment, but because it wasn't as related to the lens, but the moment where he's encouraging Korra to listen to her past lives and then Cora, is feeling really down on herself. And she's like, didn't the White Lotus tell you, right? I'm a failure at my spirituality as well, right? And then he's like, well, it could have come in like a dream or something like that. And then, she finally shares that she has been seeing things. And he, instead of, telling her like what to do, just, encourages her to meditate on it and basically be open to that pathway that's coming in. And we don't see it as much in this episode, but we know in future episodes that that's going to be kind of that catalyst where more information comes through.
It's also given what we learn later about Tenzin and his own spiritual journey, right? This is a very impactful moment that has more context later. So yeah, I agree. Such a solid mixture of him having so much hubris and him having so much humility at, at different times about the exact same thing. So it's just a fun little dichotomy, I suppose. Um, yeah, I was thinking I wanted to be grateful for Asami. I think when Iki says, "Oh my God, did you know?" uh, her response is like, "No, I had no idea," and doesn't like get mad or flare up or cause drama or do it. It's just like, huh. And I think it's just like taking what this child is saying as like she has no idea what she's saying. And I think she's just aware of that and is just going with the flow and not blaming Cora for anything, at least externally. And there's a lot of grace in her response that I find to be very mature and really, really, really lovely. So may I have a response like that in the face of questions that are similar. Okay. Anything else that we want to make sure we touch on before we finish up?
None for me.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Well, we are done with another episode. We have successfully talked about episode 8, When Extremes Meet, through a lens of intimidation and the element of water. And next time, we'll be talking about something else because that's how we roll. Episode 9, theoretically. And I'm excited to do that with you and to have whoever 4 of you, 2 of you are listening outside of us. Thank you. Wild choice, but we're glad you're here. And until next time, be well and do good.
Bye.